The document I'm holding is it's part of a larger file which came from originally the Northern Ireland office. It's a prison fines file, which essentially was a set of forms used by the prison officers to search the cells of what at the time was called HMP Maze compound. It was the old compounds that the special category status prisoners resided. I found it, we released it as part of the 1987 file release, and I found it interesting because it shows the difference in what people would associate with a so-called normal prison to what was the case in the 80s in the Maze, where you would find things that would not have been used, you wouldn't associate with normal prisoners. The sort of fines that you can see in the document. Yeah, you've got an interesting mix of the usual things you would associate with prisoners, illegal alcohol, which they made, but then you've got things like almost military dress, black clothes. There's a little map of the Maze compound drawn on someone's handkerchief. You've got a small toy telescope and flagpoles and various things, you know. I think, without ever having worked in the prison, I'm assuming as the archivist that these things would be very regular. This would almost be like what would be occurring in a normal prison. Spot checks, unannounced security sweeps of cells to find out what illicit belongings were there. The time period was the 1987, obviously, so it was post the security changes recommended by the Hennessy report. So they were trying to improve security at the prison. The Maze breakout in 1983 had occurred, mass breakout by prisoners, and what happened then was there was the Hennessy report. So a chap called Hennessy was brought in to actually reappraise security protocols in the prison and look at things like gates and all the different aspects of physical security. And one of those would have been this kind of report that I'm holding, which essentially was to say we need to do more searches of the cells and the compound, and just to make sure that there's nothing illegal going on there. So it was part of an improved security policy. Bearing in mind the narrative is limited, it's a very functional document. It's really just the fines. It's really just shedding light on the difference that the prisons here had. The reality of the conflict was that prisons here had a different level of security, and that the type of things found here, I would imagine, are unlikely to be found in most prisons in Ireland or the United Kingdom or anywhere else in the world. You would imagine that this is the kind of thing, unusual sort of semi-military kind of items, escape paraphernalia. That is quite evidence of a much more organised and different type of regime, certainly in the country at the time. This would have been produced for, well, ultimately the prison service was under the Northern Ireland office before the devolution of justice, obviously, so these reports would have been sent up to prison management, the governors, and ultimately to higher powers. But essentially this is a working document, a very functional report that notes what they found in each of the cells. Certainly as part of a Northern Ireland office prison file, it was restricted. It would have been withheld from public view. It's only been released now after the passage of 30 years, so the public wouldn't have seen this kind of thing. This would have been a very operational part of the prison service, and particularly in this country with a higher level of security, the public wouldn't have ever seen these things. It's part of an ongoing release where we're moving into what's called the 20-year rule from the 30-year rule. So we're in a transition period where we're trying to attain that level of releasing more than we ever did. This is part of a set of files, Northern Ireland Office policy and operational files that are released for the 1987 in August, and then in December we'll be releasing from 1988. So there'll be more to come. We have a huge archive on the prisons. The Northern Ireland Office, as I said, was responsible for prisons. So we have a mass archive, and more to come this year and more next year as we move on with the 20-year rule. But there's an awful lot of information, policy material, legislation, all the issues around the prisoners, the running of the prisons, the human rights aspects, the Red Cross visits, the relatives, the various church bodies that come in. So you've got all the different aspects of the government side, and then the families. And this also feeds into the hunger strike and as I said, the Maze breakout. You've an awful lot of, and then we're moving towards it's the late 80s towards the 90s when the prisoners were then starting to look towards a better solution, a peace process. So we will have material on that, hopefully in years to come. So you have a very, very substantial archive there. It is getting more attention because of what we're doing. We're advertising it more. We're selling this more as a very, very high value archive. But certainly, I know in the past, restricted areas of interest, like penologists, academics who study the penal system, will come in and have done examinations of the hunger strike or the maze, the building of the maze. So it's something we would like to see realised, a better use of the archive, and it's all there for the academics or the journalists or the PhDs who want to come and get something out of it, and possibly people who've been there, might have served there, might have been a prisoner. There's people who want to come in and just find out what's the other side of the coin. What did I not know about this? So we have an awful lot of material there. Hopefully it will be of some value too. I'm sure it will.